Welcome to Buckets. This is Action Network's basketball betting podcast presented by FanDuel, and this is the WNBA version. We have a full slate with 5 games on tap on Friday. So we have Sean Kerner here, Director of Predictive Analytics for Action Network. And if you don't know me, I'm Maria Marino. I will be continuing to host our WNBA podcast versions of Buckets coming up here. But Sean is, he's the odds maker on Twitter, if you don't know. And he is literally making the odds today because at the time of this recording, which is Thursday evening, we do not yet have game lines for Friday. Now, this has been kind of a trend so far this season. I'm not going to complain because we've had more options of things to bet this season than we ever have before. But because of that, sometimes it can be a little tricky planning wise. But this is why it's so great to have you here, Sean, because you make your own projections for every matchup. And if you missed it, we actually did an episode of Buckets a couple of weeks ago where you went through your whole process. So definitely check that out. But Sean, how excited are you for Friday's slate?
Oh, I am super excited for this juicy 5-game slate. Yeah. And like you said, we don't have odds up, but it really doesn't matter because, I'm projecting the spread total for every game. And like I said, on our preseason pod, I think that really helps attack the market. Not only when the market opens, I'll be looking to attack the opening numbers, but later in the day, the closer we get to tip off, you might see some of these odds move 4 or 5 points the other way. Sometimes you can't figure out what the market's going to do, and then I'll find value later in the day. So whenever you are listening to this, hopefully you can, find some value. We're going to go over basically what every spread and total should be for the 5-game slate on Friday.
Yeah, and it's really perfect because another trend with the WNBA is as soon as a line drops, and someone bets on it, there's movement pretty quickly. So this is kind of a guide that you can use, like you said, no matter what time you're looking at the spread, at the total, you can say, well, is this super far off of what Sean Kerner had? If so, that can help inform how you bet. So we're going to jump right into it. And the first game on Friday is the Liberty visiting the Dream at 7:30 Eastern. So what are you expecting in this one?
Yeah, so, the main story for this game is just the fact that the Liberty are off to a slow start. They're 4-2, but they just had massive expectations heading into the season. And to be honest, they've looked pretty mediocre, but we kind of figured it would take them some time to gel. Like, they have a lot of new superstars on their team. It's going to take some time to gel. But one of the interesting things about their team is 34% of their points have come from three-pointers this season, which is by far the highest percent in the league, 4% more than second place even. So they're going to be a pretty volatile team that kind of lives and dies by the three. So they might be inconsistent even when they get better. So that's something to keep in mind. And, on the other side, the Dream, I think they're really good. They're an up-and-coming team. However, they just lost guard Ari McDonald for 3 to 4 weeks due to a torn labrum in her shoulder. They're already without Daniel Robinson. So we're going to likely see the 6th overall pick, Haley Jones, get more run in this game specifically. So that'll be, fun to see. Either way, the Dream, they lean on Alicia Gray, Ryan Howard, Cheyenne Parker. So I don't think McDonald's loss really impacts the spread at all. So I'm projecting this closer to Liberty -5.5 and the total, 163.5. So if it's 2 points more or less the other way on either of those, I'll be looking to bet it. If it's close to that, I'll be staying away.
Interesting. Yeah. I actually feel like the Liberty should, in theory, be able to beat the Dream by, 6 points or more. I think your projection is still sensible given the fact that, the Liberty just haven't been putting teams away. And that was evidenced by their most recent game, that bad loss to the Chicago Sky. They were up big against them and sort of let them back in. And that was, that was just a bit of a surprise. But, they were supposed to play the Lynx just a day ago in Brooklyn. That was postponed. because of our air quality issues here in New York. I was expecting them to just like go nuts against the Lynx and just sort of have a big bounce back. So maybe they've saved up some of that pent up, energy that they will have for the Dream. It's no surprise that Brianna Stewart is, playing like an MVP, second in the league in scoring right now in points per game. Courtney Vandersloot also leading the league in assists per game at 8.8, which again, I don't think is a surprise. I think we had some questions going in, how is Sloot and somebody like Sabrina, and even now they have Maureen Johannes, the Liberty, which I'm really excited about. She's one of my favorite players. They're all players that can really dish the rock. But I think as what we somewhat expected was Sloot is really kind of the one quarterbacking the team. But talk to me a little bit about the total at 163.5.
Yeah, I just think this should be an average sort of total. The Liberty have played at the second slowest pace to start the season. They have a really good defense, but the Dream, they're ranked second in offensive efficiency. So that's kind of, why I like the Dream heading into this game. So I think the pace will be pretty average. Both defenses will be pretty good. So this should be just a normal total in the 163 range. So if this gets up to something like 167 or all the way down to like 158, I would take the under or the over. But I think this should be just a normal, straightforward 163 type of total.
Well, let's move on to the next game on tap. It's Mercury and Wings at 8 Eastern. And how do you foresee this one playing out?
Well, it's a rematch of Wednesday night's game, right? And we had the Wings barely cover by a half a point. There was a layup with like 0.1 seconds that they didn't count. So that was great for both the total and the spread. WNBA is always exciting in that regard. And, the Mercury were in control for much of the game, but they just fell apart at the end. There was like a 3 to 4 minute stretch where just everything went against them. They weren't necessarily playing bad. It was just bad luck. Diana Taurasi, she only went 2 for 14 beyond the arc. I think the spread should still be in the 4.5 to 5.5 range. I think that was about right for the first game. Should be there for the second game. However, that total was absolutely crazy. Like I told you, that day when I woke up, the total was 163.
Yeah.
I was going to tell you I'm all over the over on Green Dot Daily.
Yeah.
And it went all the way up to 167.5, which was right about where I had it.
Right.
So I stayed away.
Yes.
And sure enough, the game ended at 163 exactly.
Wow.
So I would have lost. But during the game, the in-game line was like over 175 for the majority of the game. I mean, it was a high-scoring, fast-paced game, but just the Mercury just fell apart in the fourth quarter. So taking a step back, that was the second fastest game of the season. And I had an expected score of 180 for that game. So it should have been way over. But both teams combined to shoot 22% from beyond the arc, 75% from the line, both way below expectation for both of these teams. So I think the rematch, we're going to see way more points. So I'm hoping the market's going to overreact to the first game on Wednesday and have the total, somewhere around 165 or lower, and I'll be all over the over. I think this total should be closer to 168, 169.
Really, really good point. Definitely going to be looking out to see what that total looks like on the books. But I feel as well, I'm in agreement with you that the Wings should take care of business in this game. They have been a pleasant surprise this year, I would say. I think I wasn't really sure where they would land, and they are kind of in the middle of the pack, but they're definitely exceeding expectations, and they look like a team that can do some damage, whereas the Mercury, Diana, her efficiency hasn't been what we've seen from her in the past. I'm sure, Brittany Griner is still kind of working through some things. But that being said, I again see your point with the spread being 5, because I don't think the Wings are a good enough team to be like, okay, they're going to blow them out, or, they're going to win handily. So, okay, that's 2 games down. The next one would be the Fever and Lynx in Minnesota at 8 Eastern. And these are the two bottom feeders in the league.
Yeah, I'm calling this the Caitlin Clark Bowl, right? I mean, let's be honest here. So both these teams probably want to lose. But the Lynx are coming off a 2-point road win against the Mystics. So they're also a team that should be much better than their 1-6 record. I think they're, a below average team, but not like the worst team in the league.
Yeah.
And for some reason, Aerial Powers is only playing a couple of minutes a game.
Yeah.
I think that's probably part of Cheryl Reeves tanking for Caitlin Clark strategy, if I'm being honest. And on the other side, the Fever have been playing pretty well recently. They only lost to the Aces by 4. They lost to the Sun by 3. They beat the Dream on the road by 3. So both of these teams are kind of trending up, but this is, the two worst teams in the league facing each other. So I think the Lynx should be small home favorites here, but nothing more than like 1.5 or 2 points. So if it's anything different than that, I'll be on whatever side is not the Lynx minus 1.5. And an interesting stat with the Lynx is they've allowed 92% free throws made this year. Again, that's something that's out of their control completely. So that's around 2 to 3 points a game and bad luck that they're losing just based on teams making their free throws. So maybe the Lynx aren't as bad as we think based on, little stats like that. And the total, it should be another boring right around 162 type of total. These are two of the worst defensive teams, but also pretty bad offenses, and they played a slower pace. But I do think the under for this game could be kind of sneaky because that Fever Sky game that I hit the under 162 right when it opened, it closed at 158.5, and it turned out to be the highest scoring game of the season, of course. There was 200 there was 211 points scored. The game went to overtime, which certainly helped, but it was way over before the end of regulation. But both teams combined to shoot 44% from 3, 90% from the free throw line. And it was actually one of the slowest paced games of the season. I think it was the slowest paced game of the season. So that's one of those misleading results that I like to attack. So I think the market might overinflate, Fever totals for a short period after a game like that. So I think we could see some value on the under. And the Lynx had a game similar to that 3 games ago against the Sun where there was 173 total points, and I had a 156 expected score for that game. So I think this total could be, if it's over 165, give me the under, and I think there's a chance it could be.
Okay, definitely something to watch. And, I don't want to believe that the Lynx are in any way tanking. It's crazy because, Cheryl Reeve has had a reputation of being, one of the best and winningest coaches in WNBA history. But I am curious also about Aerial Powers. Like you said, I mean, she's been one of my favorite players in the past. I think she's super talented, and I'm not really sure what the story is there with her. But look, we know Nafisa Collier is one of the bright young stars in the league too. And I want to believe that they're going to start turning around some of these close losses to wins. And then on the other side with the Fever, Aaliyah Boston has been as advertised. I was a little skeptical coming in if she would sort of live up to the high expectations, being the number 1 pick. But, she was the rookie of the month for May in the league and leading the league in field goal percentage, by the way, which, I know she shoots a lot of 2. She lives in the paint, but still, I mean, it's still pretty impressive at, over 70% from the field for a rookie. So, I'm glad we have at least a semblance of, again, your projections there so we can adjust accordingly based on what we see the sports books put out. Now, let's go to the Sky and Sparks at 10 Eastern. Now, the Sparks, they're a little confounding as well because they were just in Seattle. They lost by like a point the other day. And and
3 points.
Oh, okay. So that was
Lowest scoring game of the season.
yeah, that was an ugly one. But you know, we did mention on Green Dot Daily when you came on, like Chineye Ogwumike was out with sort of a last minute foot injury. And then meanwhile, the Sky, they're another team that I think is still kind of finding their way, finding their identity.
Yeah, exactly. You know, both of these teams have struggled just with injuries throughout the start of the season. You know, the Sparks had to play the Aces in back-to-back games when it seemed like the entire team was dealing with an illness. So I think both of these teams are only going to get better as the season goes forward. I said, you know, the Sky could get off to a slow start. Once Marina Mabry starts going, then they're going to be a lot better, and that's what's happening. You know, Mabry's coming off a 28-point game. And their win against the Liberty, they played the Liberty tough for both games. They played them back-to-back games. So both teams are trending up. This is an even matchup. I don't have a spread for this game. It's a pick 'em. I don't think either team should be favored here. I think that the Sky are slightly better. So the Sparks with the home field advantage makes this a pick 'em. Now, when it comes to the Sky, their front court is so thin right now. They can't afford Elizabeth Williams to get hurt or get into foul trouble. So if you're watching this game and Elizabeth Williams picks up a couple early fouls, that's when I think I'd live bet the Sparks. So I think, you know, that's just something I look for when I'm betting live is this Chicago front court is so thin. They need Elizabeth Williams. And the Sparks, on the other hand, are getting healthier in their front court. Like we talked about the other day, they got Ezra Stevens back. Derek Hamby should just keep seeing more minutes as the season goes on. You know, she was getting eased in to start the season. So, you know, the Sparks are trending to being at full strength. Like I said, neither team should be favored. And this is, you know, the Sky were the other team. I mentioned the Fever Sky game combining for 211 points. I don't know if this game's going to be inflated because, well, that game, there was way too many points than there should have been. That Sparks Storm game totaled 129 points. So I don't know if people are going to be rushing to bet the over on the Sparks game. So I think the total will be right around 161, where it should be.
Yeah, I mean, should be a good game. And one more game to discuss before we let you go, Sean. It's Mystics and Storm at 10 Eastern. What do you think?
Yeah, so you know, the Mystics, they've struggled this year. They're 3-3. You know,
breaks my heart.
I know they're still a top 3, top 4 team. They'll get it going, but the main issue so far has been their shooting. They have the second worst effective field goal percentage in the league to start. They've also ranked dead last in offensive rebound rate. So when it comes to player props, taking rebound overs against them has been pretty profitable because they're missing shots and they're not getting offensive boards. So there's been plenty of rebounds to go around for the opposing team. But they could snap out of it here because they're playing the Storm, a team that has allowed the highest effective field goal percentage in the league. And, you know, the Mystics defense has been solid as ever. They rank second in defensive efficiency, while the Storm offense ranks dead last. So this is a game I think the Mystics should get back on track. So I'm projecting them -7, but I would not be shocked if they just blow them out of the water because you know they're hunting for blood. They really need to snap out of this funk, and this is the perfect team to do that against. And this should be a fairly low-scoring game. I'm projecting the total at 159. So this should be the only total on the board that's below 160. So you know, if it's over 160, I'll be on the under, and if it's, you know, around 155, I'll be on the over. But I'm projecting the total closer to 159 for this game.
I guess it would be pretty shocking if the Storm got like back-to-back wins. I guess, you know, stranger things have happened. And you're right, the Mystics, I saw Elena Deladon just talking about like sort of a lack of energy at practice and just needing to sort of speak up at times and sort of snap the team out of it. So hopefully they will be motivated. And yeah, if I wonder if because of some of the uncertainty with the Mystics lately, like that spread could be a little bit on the lower side, and you know, you could potentially take advantage of it. But hey, that's every game on the slate for Friday. Almost every team in action. And Sean Kerner, what would we do without you? I mean, we would be so unprepared for, you know, when we see these WNBA lines drop. But I'm glad we have at least a good barometer of where things should be at, thanks to, you know, all the work that you put in. And you mentioned player props. Those tend to come out like the day of games. So I would encourage anybody to follow you at the Odds Maker on Twitter and on the Action app for some of your player prop picks. I may even get frisky and do a player prop now and again. I'm getting my feet wet with that. But Sean Kerner, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, and enjoy the massive 5-game slate Friday night.
And I just want to say thank you for listening to Buckets presented by FanDuel. We will have a new episode same time next week. Guest to be determined. By the way, download the award-winning Action app. Make sure you rate and review this podcast if you get a chance, 5 stars preferably. And you could win Action swag or a free subscription to Action Pro. Let's get buckets.